Hello and welcome. I decided to start a YouTube channel to share my story, which very possibly can be relevant to you and your situation. Well, actually, a lot of people's situation, but we'll get into that later, how that all ties together. So just to explain a bit about myself, I was born in South Africa, and I've got a lot of half brothers and half sisters. Very big family from both my father's side and from my mother's side. We were both married a few times. But specifically, I want to speak about my family on my mother's side. As I said, my mother was married a few times. Obviously, no judgment, she was looking for love. And but there were a lot of things that happened to her before even I was born. I'm the youngest on my mom's side. Out of all her kids, I'm the youngest. There's 5 of us in total. Well, there's 4 of us left. My one sister passed away a couple of years ago. But basically, what I want to talk about is, the first thing that I want to mention is that my mother went through absolute hell in her life. Mom, if you're watching this, you're a champion, you're extremely strong, and you deserve a serious medal. My mother's first husband, that was the love of her life. But this is where things in her own personal life started to take a serious turn, because that husband, which is, the father of my one brother and my one sister, he committed suicide. So I can only imagine what that does to somebody, psychologically, emotionally, and everything that goes together with that. And when my father and my mother got together, my other brothers and sisters, they were, small, very young. And, there were a lot of situations that took place that is not your conventional type of thing that you hear every day, not the type of conversation that people normally talk about. But there was a lot of abuse that took place. I don't want to go into too much detail, for the sake of keeping, respecting people's privacy. My family don't even know that I'm going to be speaking about this stuff. So I want to be as vague as possible, but give you enough information to give you context so you can have an understanding. There was a lot of abuse that took place that affected many people. I wasn't born yet, just to clarify. There was one other factor. Now look, I'm not here trying to convince you of anything. I'm not here I have no reason to lie about this stuff. The whole purpose of this channel is to share my story, and either you connect with it, it resonates with you, or it doesn't. If it doesn't resonate with you and you don't connect with what I'm saying, that's fine, no problem. So anyway, the one important aspect of the situation is that there were a family curse that was placed on my family, on my mother's side of the family. I know who, or we know who, but it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. What matters is that this caused an avalanche of very negative situations to take place, very bad situations to take place. Yes, and this caused a lot of trauma to be inflicted on everybody that was inside that house. And what I can say about the curse that was placed, it was placed out of jealousy. And there was a lot of hate that came from that jealousy. Fast forward a couple of years, my parents ended up getting divorced. I think I was around about 3 years old, 4 years old, somewhere there. And then my mother met another man. They used to work together. They ended up getting together. And, he was my stepfather for, it was about 15 years, 14 years, 15 years. Yeah, I think closer to 15 years. And their life also, unfortunately, was very chaotic. There was a lot of, also fighting in the house. He was, I would say at heart he was a good man, but possibly he was also went through a lot of stuff. And of course he was also in jail. So not that that's, I'm not pointing fingers or judging, but that comes with its own line of baggage, when people come from that type of situation. Anyway, yeah, so going into, I'd say, me at the age of around about 14, this is where things started to go downhill. I got involved in smoking cigarettes when I was 14. Actually smoked marijuana for the first time when I was 12. And then later, 1 year later, at the age of 15, started taking drugs. And this was because it was my escape. This was a way that, I was dealing with what was going on. Obviously at the time not realizing it, but, we seek, we live in a world where there's always outside pleasures. We're seeking. But that we'll get into detail in later videos. And then, I would say, at the age of 14, that's when this started for me to go downhill. And I would say, obviously, like I said, due to the drinking, the drugs, the partying, because I was into partying and DJing and whatever. At the age of 17, I'd say 17 is when I started to get depressed, became antisocial. I started to shut down emotionally and mentally. And I just started to feel like exhausted. That's actually the best word to describe what I went through for those 20 years of my life before I actually was able to get myself out of that own personal hell that I was in. And that's what I'm referring to in terms of like a coma. I had fallen into a mental, emotional, and spiritual coma. From a lot of all these events that took place, which I'm going to get to now in a second and explain. And that was from the age of, I say, 17, 18, going into my early 20s is when it became like really bad. And I actually ended up leaving South Africa, going overseas just to get away. And that's actually when I started to learn a bit about spirituality and different aspects of that. subject. And yeah, I'd say for a good 20 years of my life, it was, I felt like it, exhausted. And, not knowing why. I mean, I was into gymming on and off, but I mean, that wasn't helping to the point where this exhaustion, this was like which I found out later was, it's not an exhaustion from lack of sleep. It's a different kind. It's like an energetical exhaustion. And then to tie everything together, me being on this 20-year stretch of being in this state, I didn't know anybody else that was in my circle of friends. I obviously couldn't depend on my home situation because that was still, not good. And so I had to find out all of this stuff on my own. And it took me 20 years to get to the point where I actually could pull myself out of this state of being. And this all ties together because of, this is one main aspect. Trauma. Sorry, my handwriting is not the best. And you'll see that my drawing later on is going to be even worse. But anyway. Now this trauma comes in many different forms. There's something called sorry, I know it's actually too big. Anyway, transgenerational Now, this is basically when trauma is passed down from one generation to the next generation. And this now has actually been proven in science. The scientists took a group of rats and they, every time they would give rats food, they would shock them with like a taser. And after doing that a few times, they traumatized the rats that they were too scared now to go, for the food. And when those rats that were traumatized with the taser had babies, they had the same response. Obviously, they weren't tased, is what I'm saying, but they had the same reaction because on a cellular level, trauma gets trapped inside of the body. And this is transgenerational trauma. And the scary thing about this is that this can actually get passed down. Some sources say 14 generations, some sources say 17 generations, but either way, it doesn't matter. If you have trauma that's been passed down multiple generations to the next generation, you have no idea. We have no idea what happened 5 generations ago or 10 generations ago. And now you are the one, you are the person that's receiving all of that. So maybe the things that you go through in your life, even if your actual life that you live is not traumatic, but you're suffering in some way and you have no idea why, because all of this has been passed down from previous generations. So yes, it's pretty intense and quite shocking, but it's good to know because now that I'm aware of this stuff, or when I became aware of this stuff, I could do the further research to find out how to eliminate that, because that can hold you back in life, and it can stunt your growth in life of having success or having healthy relationships, or just living a good life, or just being happy, just for the sake of being happy, or even loving yourself as an individual. That can have an effect on all of that stuff. Yes, so in my later years, I came across a video, and this man talks about, it's a plant medicine. And it's called 5-MeO-DMT. Now this is what's known as This is a psychedelic. Now this has actually become, psychedelics have become pretty popular, in the last couple of years when it comes to therapy, to help people, with different emotional issues or whatnot. Now, I am not saying that somebody needs to use this. What I'm saying is this is when things change for me. When I found this video about what this guy explained, it took me about 7 years to actually get to the point where I was able to, have a session with this plant medicine. And I tell you what, that experience, you can't even explain it. Just to touch on this again, this is actually the most powerful psychedelic in the world. You get other psychedelics like normal NN-DMT, and you get other psychedelics like mushrooms, LSD, but this is in a whole league of its own. And this is when I did this, everything changed for me. Now, I'm not recommending this to anybody. I'm not saying that anybody should do 5-MeO-DMT, especially if you don't know if you have serious trauma, in your family, or if you have suffered serious trauma. What I can say for myself is that the trauma, there's actually one aspect of my trauma that happened to me when I was young, which I won't discuss for the sake of other people respecting their privacy, and there's no need for me to go into too much detail about that. But what I will say is that specific trauma I'm talking about, only 7% of the population globally ever suffer with that trauma. So it's quite serious, but I'm grateful for everything. I'm of the belief, I don't know what you believe, and it doesn't matter, but I'm of the belief that we choose our life before we incarnate on earth. And I believe I chose my life for this reason. The knowledge that I have nowadays that I want to share with people to help people, obviously through my story. I believe I can help anybody, because 93% of the population have no idea what it's like to experience that trauma. So if I've experienced the worst of the worst, I'm pretty sure I can help you if you've suffered similar things, same things, or less. And then, so once I had smoked, because you can smoke it, there's other forms of doing it. And this is not some type of, drug where you're having fun, woo, and partying and whatever. No, this is medicine. This is plant medicine. It's also found on the skin of one specific frog. I think it's a buffalo alvarius frog in Colorado, in America. The shamans, the red Indians. This is, what the stories that you hear is about this psychedelic. Okay, and then as I said, once I smoked this, everything changed. Then I came across a gentleman, more like face to face, but his book, one of his books that he wrote. It's called Power versus Force. The author is David. And so basically, all the information inside of this book is going to be the foundation of this channel. Everything that I'm going to share about my journey and how I fix myself is going to be relevant to what's inside this book. And what's actually relevant inside this book is the map of you can read it. It's a map of consciousness. So in the next video, I'm going to go into detail about this and how this applies to every single living being on this planet, whether it's animal or human. Okay, perfect. I'll see you in the next one.